Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's mostly ladies. Nice to see everybody. Even though I
How
don't
are you?
But
Good evening.
it's as if I see you. Oh, there you are. Okay, one of them I see now.
There was a gentleman, I think Daniel or Daniel, and he left. He left probably like 10 minutes ago. I don't know if
Okay. Well, we hope he comes back. God bless his soul, whoever he may be. All right. Okay, so here we go. So we're starting a new siman. You bet. We actually finished. Right? We're going somewhere. We're going places. We are going places. Okay.
The other one was long.
This one's even longer.
This is
Wow.
very long.
All right. We'll see how it goes.
This is a discussion.
Wow.
Huge.
Wow. Okay. So let's see the tour, right? I'm sorry, I brought up Yud Gimel instead. Do Yud Bet, right? Yud Bet have to do. Because Yud Gimel is very small, actually. Okay. Okay, so it says like this. Im nifsuku kol chutea. It says in the tour. If all the strings got cut, nishtayer behem kedei aniva. But there's enough over there to make aniva, right? What does aniva mean? Kasher, it's kosher. It means you can like bend it back to its source. That's called kedei aniva.
So two sources where the first knot is?
We're talking about the last knot. You can go back there.
Oh.
It's long enough to go back to the last knot. Yes. So oh, right. So he says, but it has to be enough to do all of them together. So you need a little bit more slack for that. Not just one. So that's a little bit more, it says, as we said. Of each one by itself. But Rashi, so that's the tour with the tour. Rashi explains the from the anaf, right? Very, which means the right from the strings, from the beginning of the strings. Oh, so says we, even if the whole string was cut off altogether, nothing is left. Right? And all you have is just enough to go back to the source, as we said, right? Bend it back to the source from the gedil, from the knots. Kasher, it's kosher. So it seems like this is a little bit of a different opinion. This one is more lenient a little bit. Okay, is that the end of it? Kasher, when it says kasher, is it the end of it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's see Bit Yosef. I'm sure we'll have a lot of interesting things there. Bit.
The small aleph and then the big aleph.
Usually it's the big one. If you show me, I'll tell you for sure.
Oh, I see it. It's not so.
Right.
I see it's matching with the tool.
Yes. Right? Yeah. So it says, so I'm skipping down, right? That's the quote from the couture. Then I'm skipping down after the headline. It says, Beresh Perek Revi'i de Menachot. It's over there. Again, right? Menachot, same place, as usual, right? We come back there always. Lamed Chet Amud Aleph.
Mhm.
Tanan, it says in the Mishnah over there, Hatchelet eno me'akev et halavan, right? The tchelet doesn't hold back the white. The halavan eno me'akev et hatchelet. And the white doesn't hold back the tchelet, right? So they're independent, each one of the other. It says in the Gemara there, Lema matnitin de lok Rabbi. So it says, let's say the Mishnah is not like Rabbi. Who's Rabbi? Rabbi Udanasi, right? The Tanya, it says in the Braita, Ureitem oto, that you should seal them, it says, right? We say that's what we say in the Kriyat Shema. Melamed sheme'akvin ze et ze. It tells you that they do hold back each other. Divrei Rabbi, right? So see, Rabbi holds that they do hold back each other, right?
So no tehelet, no white.
Right. The Chachamim say en me'akvin. They say no, doesn't hold it back. Machloket, right? Like everything else in life, right? What else is new, right? Okay. So ve'asikna. And the conclusion is over there. Amar Rava, lo nisracha ela le gardomin. So it says this was only needed for gardomin. The igardom tchelet. So what does that mean? If the tchelet was igardom, right, which probably means like it was cut off, whatever. Right, we'll see what that means. The ka'e lavan, and now the white is left over, or igardom lavan, right, or the white got cut off. The tchelet. The kayet chelet and the chelet is left over. Letlan, then we don't care. You know, we're good with that. In other words, each one is independent, one of the other. You know, so one has nothing to do with the other, right? The Amrei bnei Rabbi Chia, because they say, right, the sons of Rabbi Chia, gardum et chelet ksherim. That if the chelet got cut, it's kosher. The kama shiur gardomi. So how much is that, right? In other words, how much has to be left over? To make, as we said, right, the bow, right? Make the bow. Then afterwards, right, it says over there, Lamatit Amud Aleph, Amar Rabba Baravada. It says this rabbi, if the string got cut off until the source, you know, until the root, right, nothing left. Pasula, pasul. We don't, because you don't have Kedaniva, right? You have nothing there. There's nothing left. Right. Some explain this. Tehach shinuya de gardomin, that this answer of gardomin, aliba de Rabbi. This is going to Rabbi, the first opinion in the Mishnah, right? Rabbi, the Rabbanan, because according to Rabbanan, atya matnitin kipshata. The Mishnah comes like its simple meaning. What does that mean? The tchelet eno me'akev et halavan. The tchelet doesn't hold back the white cloud at all. In other words, even if there's nothing left. Ela the dachik talmuda leokume matnitin aliba de Rabbi. But what happened was the Talmud went out of its way to uphold this discussion according to the opinion of Rabbi. So when it comes to Gardomin, then the Rabbi holds that they hold back each other. Right? So he holds it's all one mitzvah, the tchelet and the white. It's one group. A complex mitzvah, right? Whatever you call it, right? Right. Mitzvah echad. Mo'il shalem lechavero keilu kulam shlemim. So, if one is full, it helps the other one to make it also full. But according to rabbis, they don't hold back each other. They're independent. These two, right? Species, whatever the types. So therefore, it's two mitzvot. So therefore, if it got cut, one of them got cut, right? Either the tchelet or the white. The ka'aya idach, and the other one is still there. And moilin ze. They don't help each other. And we don't pass like Rabbi, right? Obviously, we don't pass like that. The Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri paligale, because this rabbi is cholek on Rabbi. The Kaimalan, it says in the Eruvin, Mem Bava Mudbet, halacha keRabbi mechavero. Oh. So the rule is, you know, that it says in Masechet Eruvin, when Rabbi argues with one of his friends, halacha is always like him. You know, this is the general rule, right? There are rules like this. Just like we said, there's rules in the Shulchan Aruch. There's also rules in the Talmud. I mean, so this is one of the rules, but not his Rebbe, right? So meaning what? That this rabbi was his Rebbe, you know? So we don't paskin like him when it comes to his Rebbe. As we said, right, usually we paskin like the Rebbe, not the Talmud. Usually that's the way it is, you know? So that's the same thing over here as well. Right? Yeah. The Tosfot ve'arosh dachu svara zo. So Tosfot and Rosh said, no, good. Don't say like this. Interesting, right? Why is that? Mishum de la mistaber de tahabe milta de bnei Rabbi Chia beplugta. So he says it doesn't make sense that the words of the sons of Rabbi Chia should be argument. The Rabbi of Rabbi, the Rabbanan and Rabbanan. Right. So in other words, it doesn't make sense that these rabbis should get involved in a machloket between Rabbi and Rabbanan. Doesn't make any sense. So therefore, it comes according to everybody. This Gemara, and since this svara, this opinion, was pushed out, lo is kira Rabbeinu. So therefore, Rabbeinu didn't mention it bichlal. Okay, right. So in other words, we don't pass like Rabbi, right? That's pashut, right? We pass like the Chachamim. Okay. Right. So according to this thinking, whatever, the Kaimalan kebnei Rabbi Chia, we hold like Rabbi, the sons of Rabbi Chia. Pershu shnei perushim. There's two ways of understanding that too, right? Everything's machloket, right? Like there's machloket in every little stage. You know, nothing is so simple at all. Right? So echad katav arosh b'psakav. One of them was written in the Rosh, in the Psakim of the Rosh. This is the language of the Rosh. Yesh mefarshim. Some explain, right? If the tchelet what got cut off, the ka'el lavan, and the white is left over, hanu denifsak achut mikaro. That means it was totally cut off, nothing left over. Very little, something, a little bit there, a little scrap left over, The Rabbi, according to Rabbi, that he holds. The one holds back the other, mitzvah echad, so they're one mitzvah. So what does that mean? So therefore what we do is one fixes the other, right, and therefore it's kosher. But according to Rabbanan, the savred and makvin they hold, the one doesn't hold back the other. Whether you have tchelet or lavan, you still have to put 4 strings. So therefore, if one string got cut off till the root, pasul. Why? Since it got cut at the place where it's attached to the knots, right? So therefore, the problem is, all you have left now is 3 strings. You don't have 4 anymore. That's it. This is the problem, But if all 4 of them got cut off, but each one has enough to make a loop, right? As we said, right? That loop, kasher, then it's kosher. Each one has enough. This is all b'diavad, by the way, right? We're talking about b'diavad is kosher. We don't make it like that, l'chachila, obviously. Right? You know what I mean?
It happens.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Right. Rabbi Chia, not what you brought. The sons of Rabbi Chia, Ahad Yamar Rabba, regarding what Rabba said, was only need to say regarding the issue of gardomim, which is the cutoff. Lo shehe legamre kiahi b'nei Rabbi Chia. That doesn't mean that it's totally like the sons of Rabbi Chia. Aliba de Rabbanan, according to Rabbanan, the matzecher lechol arba akutim. They require all 4 strings. That should be enough to make a loop. The gardumet chelet, right, and the achal kol arba chutei ka'eh. When it says that the chelet got cut off, it's talking about all 4 strings. The gardum miksatam, because if some of them got cut, mishter miksatam, and some of them got left over, kiyotzebo and things like this. Le Rabba, according to Rabba, liba de Rabbi, according to Rabbi, gardum chutei chelet begamre. Even if the chelet got cut off altogether, and the white stayed shlemim, the whole, or the other way around, the opposite. Ksherim kosher, below my teraya mibnei Rabbi Chia ela. So it only brings a raya from the sons of Rabbi Chia. The lo bainan sofo ketchilato. We don't need the end to be like the beginning. The more kedeitle, according to one opinion, the more the kedeitle, and also the other, according to the other opinion. The other kamar Rab nifsak chut mikaro pasul. That which Rab said, that if it got totally cut off until the root, it's pasul. Lav dafka mikaro doesn't mean all the way. Ela kol shelo nishar bo kedei aniva. It means that it's still right. It doesn't have enough to make a loop. that's already pasul. Even though there's a little bit left over there, it doesn't mean nothing. או נפסק מקרו כאלה. So that's cut off altogether. וכיוון דלא נשאר בו כדי הכשר, and since there's not enough left over to be kosher, right? Perush זה עיקר. So this is the עיקר, the main perush, the main understanding over here. דגרדו מתחילת בני רבי חייא, that he says, when it says, right, that the tchelet got cut off, according to Rabbi Chia, mashma de'igardum kol arbata means all four of them. Ki koreh lechol tzitzit tchelet. So it says, because it calls all the tzitzit together tchelet, even though not all of them are tchelet. The kamar, sometimes it's a general term. The kamar tchelet shekarach ruba kshera. So it says that, as we said in the Gemara, over there in Menachot, that if you took the tchelet, right, and you wound it all, there's no strings left over, nothing, right? It's kosher. Also, it says, so it's also much like the Gemara like this. Therefore, it says even if it got cut off, all those 8 strings got cut off. But there's enough left over to make loops on each one. Kasher, it's kosher. And even if there is, right, on one string less than a loop, asur. That's the language of the of this rabbi. Okay. The Alpi Perush said, according to this Perush, says Maran, Katav Rabbeinu wrote, Im nifsaku kol achutea nishter ben k'dei aniba. If all the strings got cut off, but there's enough to make a loop, kasher. Just like the sons of Rabbi Chia said, Gardu metchelet ksherim. That if you get cut them off, they're kosher. But there's not to be the anban in order to make a loop. Even if they're all cut like that, they're still kosher. According to the sons of Rabbi Chia, as long as it's left over that much, right? As we said, the loop. When it says, right, gardu metchelet, it means all the tzitzit. Because all tzitzit is called tchelet. And that which he said, that if there wasn't enough over, enough to make a loop, even with one string, when you and got all cut off, pasul, then it's pasul. Hainu damar means to say, Rabbi Barabada, this rabbi Barabada, even if sakachut mikaro, that if it got cut totally, psula, it's pasul. Apapi shepirosh Rashi, even though Rashi explains mikaro rosha mechubar letalit. Rashi explains it differently, right? He says that, what does it mean? It's talking about the part which is connected to the talit. It has to go that far, according to Rashi, right? Which is something that, we don't. That's not the way we paskin. But according to Rashi, that's the way he learns it. So the Kavar Katati v'Shem Arosh. So he said, all he wrote in the name of the Rosh. The Chol Shelo Nishar Bo Kedei Aniba Nifsak Ben Karo Mikre. But according to Rosh, it's not like that, right? Not like Rashi. So what does that mean? If you don't have enough to make a loop, it's gone, finished. Right? That's the way you have to explain also Rabbeinu says, Tur, that didn't define his words. He wrote undefined. Katav Krishna Gemara. He wrote like the language of the Gemara. V'chen Katav Rabbeinu Gadol, also Rabbeinu Gadol Maria Avuhav also wrote like that. Katav the Tama de Shekatav Rabbeinu. So he says also the reason that Rabbeinu wrote Nifsak Kulo, that it got all cut all of it. Who Kadesh lo nit'eh lomar, in order that we shouldn't make a mistake and say Shem Shmoneh Chutim, that there's 8 strings. Kshiamar Chut Shehu Omer al Rosh Echad Me'elu Shmoneh. So if he says, right, that one string, that means it's one of the 8 that we mentioned. Lachen Amar שכוונתו הוא על החוט כולו. So therefore he explains that he's talking about the whole string, לכלול שני חלקים. That means both parts. עד כאן יש לנו. So just to, give you a little bit practical, right, know-how here. The trick is like this, okay? Like you have, as we said, right, you're putting it into the hole and you're bending it over. You got 8 strings, okay? When you make the knots and the windings, blah, 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 you're all done, right? So what happens is if one string gets cut off on one side, totally, nothing left over, it's still kosher. How is that?
No loop.
No loop, right, exactly. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but just giving you a little preemptive, preemptive knowledge, you know what I mean? So you should understand. It's still kosher 100%. Why is that? Because on the other side, you still have that same string.
Right.
You understand? Yeah. You probably heard this before, right?
No.
Yeah, maybe, okay. But that's the way it is, okay? So what does that mean? The only problem is when it gets cut from both sides. You understand? Then you have a problem. But the problem is like this, right? Sometimes we don't know if it's the same string or not. Let's say it got cut on both sides, and we're not sure if it's the same one. So what do? We'll sapek deoraita lechumra, right? We go lechumra because it's deoraita. But the truth is, that's what it is. Yeah, pretty much that's the story, So we go lechumra, if it's cut on both sides. But if it's just one side, it's still good. You know what I mean? Okay, so it's good to know that, right? Because it happens very often, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially with children, stuff like that. Okay. I see. Okay, right. Yeah, it happens. It happened to me too, a couple of times. Okay, whatever. So anyway, right? Umash katav hilkach. Now what she wrote. Do you know where we are, by the way? Should I tell you? Because we're now. Okay. So let me show you. Umash katav hilkach. Let me show you. Okay. I think we're right here. Oh, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's where we are. So it says Umash Katav. You see that? Hilkach, right? Yeah. Kevan shekol echad kafur shnaim. But since now they're both doubled, right? As we said, I just told you that, right? They're both double. So there's a difference there. Right? Even if sakush ne rashim pasul. Right? I think the truth is, we didn't read this tour yet.
There was the small aleph and the big aleph.
Right, so we should go back to the tour and read that probably, otherwise we're going to be out of order here.
First stuff was something like the law.
The right. You see where that is in the tour? So it says Ve'im lo nishar kedei aniba afilu bechut echad. Even if it doesn't have a loop on one string, shenifsak kulo got totally cut. Pasul. Therefore, it says kevan shekol echad kaful lebet. This is the important part that we're looking for. And since each one is doubled, right, on both sides, right? Even if sakul betrashim, if both sides got cut, then you got a problem, right? Pasul. Sheman ifsak chut echad, because maybe it's the same string. Right? That's the problem. You know what my question was, by the way, here? My head was, ticking a little bit with this question just now. Didn't we say that only the first knot is deoraita and the rest of it are derabanan, right? Only minhag. So what do I care if, I don't have enough? Right, exactly. That's the thing, So you know what the answer is? The chora. The answer ticked also into my head somehow. The answer is that according to the Torah, you have to have some strings. That's the thing, as we said, right? The Torah requires 2 things, gedil and the strings, right? The tzitzit. So when you don't have strings, it's from the Torah problem. Even though the other knots are derabanan, true, but you also have to have strings according to the Torah. You know what I mean? Those knots are not necessary, but strings are necessary.
In that case, Rabbi, you can unwind.
Yeah, I was just thinking of you just read my mind. I was thinking the same thing.
But then
in order to make it kosher, right, in an emergency case, right, you can't change it. Let's say it's Shabbat, right? So what are you gonna do, right? Whatever, or something like that, right? You open it up and you make it kosher, right? Like you said. I'm not even sure, by the way, if that's allowed to do on Shabbat. Probably not, because opening is not allowed on Shabbat. Opening knots is not allowed.
But it's not a
especially when you're
perfect
creating something, like you're kashering the beged, it's probably not allowed to do it on Shabbat. Okay, so what can I tell you, right? It looks like that, but anyway, right? That's a trick. If you have an emergency case, right, that's what you would do. You'd open it up like that, then you have enough strings to get by.
right before Shabbat.
Shem Yirachem. Hopefully, we'll never get to see that case, right? Not exactly a pleasant way to go, but what can you do? That's life. C'est la vie. Okay, so right, that's the way it goes. So let's go on. But it says, but if it's only one side that got cut, kasher, it's kosher, right? There's another opinion, right? If 3 got cut, pasul. You know what it's saying here? 3 on one side.
Oh,
Some say it's pasul.
oh, so you still have the other side.
Let's see what it says. Look at the tour. Some say if it was right 3 strings, pasul. Even if you have a loop. That's interesting. It's a different opinion. Bet, but if it's 2 only, kasher. If you have enough for a loop, right? But if you have enough for a loop. According to this, he says, according to this opinion, even if both sides were cut, kasher, it's still kosher. In other words, until it's 3, it's kosher. On both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But it has to have the kedaniba. Okay, well, that's not how we pass. But it's a different opinion. Okay, so then he goes on. By the way, the tour is pretty short here. So I don't know how the Beit Yosef is so big that you saw. Yeah, it's huge, huh?
Yeah.
But the tour is not so huge. Okay, interesting. Okay, that's what it was in the last Simon as well, more or less. Okay. All right. So, so as we say, right? Veim nifsaku bet kasher. According to this, he says, this is the conclusion of the tour, right? Kasher, right? Right. Okay, that we already did. Until it's 3. So then in the end, he says like this, right? Conclusion. He says that my father, the Rosh, agrees with the first opinion. So we don't pass like this opinion, right? That's basically the story, as we mentioned, right? We don't go by 3. 3 is not a magic number. No such a thing like that. Okay, whatever, right? Interesting. He doesn't even, by the way, mention who it is. This opinion, he doesn't give a name.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeshomrim.
Yeshomrim. Okay. God bless the Yeshomrim. Okay, that's the end of that, right? So now we go back to Beit Yosef. Okay. So I'll delete this tour now for now. And let's go to Beit Yosef. Okay, so it says, right? You know where we are, right? On top of there.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, that's the tour, right? He's quoting the language of the tour. So I'm starting after that, right? After the so it says Pashutu, that's Pashut, he says, right? All this stuff. Simple stuff, right? In other words, this 2-side business, right, that we talked about.
Right.
It's Pashut, because you have 1 string left over there. So whatever you're lacking here, you have over there. Mm-hmm. Okay, no big deal, right? So it says, it implies that only 1 side was cut. And there's no loop there. No loop. But since the other side is still there, kasher, it's kosher, right? Not only that, he says, oh, so now he says, right, even if the second side got cut also, kasher, it's still kosher. When is that? If you have a loop. The second side has a loop, you're good. That's all you need after all, right?
First side's
Nothing, right? Nothing, right? Second side, 1 loop, right? Which is what? Like, let's say, I don't know, maybe a centimeter. It's not really a lot. Okay? Okay, so, Because we only puzzle it when there's nothing left over on both sides. Right? Because it's enough just we have one loop there, right, on one side. That's it. If not so, if you're not going to say like that, right? That which Rabbeinu wrote, that both sides got cut, pasul, that is pasul. What are we talking about? If it's talking about that you have a loop on my pasul, why is it pasul? Even if all of them got cut. If you have a loop left over, kasher, it's kosher anyway. But if it's not left over a loop, then why do I need to tell me right about two sides? Even one side is no good. Right, it's still going to be good. So you have to agree, right, according to this language, that just one side is not going to puzzle it. It has to be both sides. Even if there's something left over, nothing, right, just a little bit left over, you know, not there's no loop there, right? It says, so, and if you don't have both sides, right, a loop, then you got a problem. Okay? Let me just get a little bit water here. My mouth is dry. God bless you. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so we go on. It also comes out like that from the Rosh. He says, the perush zeh, according to this perush. Right? Try to find the place, by the way. Just we're up to the Chenir. Yeah. Got it. So it says it also comes out like that from the Rosh. But the Rabbanan, the Sabbath, the enemy acting. But it says according to rabbis that hold that enemy acting says that they don't hold back one the other. In other words, he's telling you, right? According to Chamim in the Talmud, that hold like the one doesn't hold back the other, right? So whether it does have tchelet, ben sheyesh lo lavan, or whether it has white, you have to put 4 strings anyway. So then if one string got cut off from the root, pasul, it's pasul. Since it got cut from the place of the attachment, the kanaf, right in the corner, so then you have only 3 strings left over. Atkan, right? Hare behedya. So that's the end of the Rosh. Right. So now it says Maran explains it. Hare behedya b'nifsak chut meikaro. So you see from here that the Rosh says that if one string got cut from the root, lo pasinan, we don't puzzle it. Ela b'pnei shelo nisharu ela shlosha chutim. Only because 3 strings got left over. Ha'im ishter katzat me'achut harabi. But if there's a little bit left over from the 4th one, as we said, right, a little bit loop there. Right, the hainu rosh echad, one side, one side. Or some of it, kasher, kosher. But it says it has to be enough to make, as we said, right, loop. Not what you wrote afterwards, the Rosh, the Hadamar Rav, and not what Rav said, that the string got cut off from the root, pasul, it's pasul, it doesn't really mean the root. It means that there's no loop. Right? Even if it's a little bit more than that, a little bit less than that, it's still going to be pasul. It's called like totally cut off. So it must be, as we said, right? It must talking about it got cut off from both sides, because otherwise you have the other side. And so therefore you don't have a loop on each side, right? On both sides. But if one is left over on one side, enough for a loop, even even though the second side that doesn't, it's not left over. Right to this amount, kasher kosher. As long as what that got cut away from the knots, right? Makom chibro, where it's connected, the kanaf on the corner. And even though both strings, the heads are still existent, but they're considered like they don't exist. Why is that? Because they're not holding the talit. That's where Rosh wrote. If it got cut off at the place where it's attached kanaf to the corner, so then you really have 3 strings. If they broke both sides, right, of the string, right? You don't have enough for a loop. But what about if I have on both sides, right, half and half? If I put them together, there will be enough for a loop. Does that combine? That's the question, right? So he says, I was thinking to maybe it's kosher, but it says, but so it was possible to say that because of this, according to Yeshomim, Katav Rabbeinu, right, wrote Rabbeinu, that both sides got cut off, kasher, it's kosher. That means they have enough to make a loop. It's a little bit implied in that language that you don't have on both sides one or the other, but together only. But since by combining both of them you have enough, right? Kasher, it's kosher. But look at Maran, look what he says, right? That even though it seemed to me like logical, but he says, I don't have any source for this. Okay, which is a good lesson, right, for people who study, right? Okay, don't make up things from your head. Right, so Matati Mishkatav Ken. There's also one that says that if there is not on each one enough to make a loop, even though together you have enough, you will put them together. Even though, since you don't have on each side enough for a loop, it's not really recognizable or significant, this kind of thing. Therefore, it's considered like it doesn't exist. It's interesting. Interesting. Okay, interesting chiluk, right? Whatever, separation, whatever, interesting differentiation there. The Tosfot katvu perush acher. Tosfot writes a different perush, the sugya azov, regarding this whole discussion. Vezelo shana, right? This is the language of Tosfot. Lo nitzracha ela legardomin. When it says in the Gemara gardomin, right? First we explained gardomin in the beginning. That's totally cut off, right? But there's enough for a loop. So he says, "Mashma de'ei gardom kulu bifsele." So says Tosfot, it's mashma like this, right? Implies that if it got totally cut off, they puzzle it. Ve'omer Rabbeinu Tam, says Rabbeinu Tam, de'achshav shenotrim arba'a chutim. So he says, now that since we put 4 strings, shnai mishum lavan, or shnai mishum tchelet, 2 is for the white and 2 is for the tchelet, as if we had it, right? As if we had it. It's like a replacement, right? Substitute. The koflin lishmona, and we fold it into 8. So it says you have to be careful now. So what does that mean? And if 3 strings are going to be cut, maybe those are 3 separate strings. That would mean that 2 complete strings haven't been left over. That's the significance of 3, right? Remember before we said 3 is like some kind of a shita like this that was brought in the Torah. Right. So it turns out it's Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, so Rabbeinu Tam holds the 3 rule, right? The 3 strikes you're out, right? That's what he wrote. So what's the logic? And now we see the logic of it, right? What's the logic? The logic is that since we really need 2 tchelet and 2 lavan, right? So If only if 3 got cut, then we know we don't have 2 left. We just need 2 basically, b'diavad. I mean, 4 is only like a chumrah, these days. That's what he holds. We only need 2 really.
I see.
Yeah. So according to that, according to Rabbeinu Tam, right, the 3 rule applies. 3 strikes you're out, right? Applies. Because then you don't have 2 strings left over. That's the problem. The Gam HaRosh is Kir Svarazo, right? So the Rosh also mentioned this Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. Right? So this is the language of the Rosh.
Okay, sorry, next question.
Sure.
Does that mean there's no loop? But it means even with the loop, if you cut up 3, that small piece doesn't count.
Well, so far, I mean, our assumption is that when there's a loop, you're good. So we're talking about here, there's no loop.
But if
So you have 3 strings cut with no loop. That's what we're talking about. You know what I
but
mean?
even if you have 1 string cut with no loop, it's possible.
That's only on both sides, right? But here's the thing, right? Rabbeinu Tam doesn't hold this way. Rabbeinu Tam holds, 1 string is not good enough to puzzle. Why is that? Because we only really need 2. You know what I mean? According to Rabbeinu Tam. 4 is just a chumrah, according to him.
So if even
You know what I mean?
if from both sides he says
Yeah.
it's completely cut, it's cut with a loop is remaining on both sides. Is okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Yeah, it should be good. We didn't see anything else, anything to contradict that.
Right.
Okay, so that's interesting. But that's where the 3 rule comes from, right? So now the Rosh brings it also, this 3 rule, right? He brings it down, even though he doesn't pass like that, right? But he brings it. The Gama Rosh is Kir Sarazol Bezol Shano. This is the language of the Rosh, right? Lo nitzacha ela legardomin. There's only need for gardomin. The igardom tchelet. That means what? That the tchelet got totally cut. The ka'el lavan, but the white is left over. Mashma the igardom tarvayu. So it's mashma from this Gemara. It says the Rabbeinu Tam or the Rosh, right? Whatever the name of that shita. Psile. Then it's really pasul. Only if both of them got cut off. What does that mean? The tchelet and the lavan. But as long as it's only one and the other one's left over, you're good. Even if you have a kedeniva, right? Psile. So right. So here, what he's saying is that it's pasul even if you have a loop when it's 3. Okay, this was something new introduced now. We didn't see this before.
Who's saying this?
The Rosh is saying this in the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam, right? According to Rabbeinu Tam.
Rosh and Rabbeinu Tam.
They weren't brothers.
So who's the Tur and the Rosh?
Right.
Tur is the son
So the story is like this, right? That Rabbeinu Tam was a grandson of Rashi, okay? And they were like about 300 years before the Rosh. Approximately 250, 300.
And the Tur?
The Tur was the son of the Rosh.
Son of the Rosh. That's
So, you have like, 2 different generations basically, right? Far off from each other. This is the earlier Rishonim and this is the later Rishonim, Basically, that's what it is. Yeah. Okay, good. So now let's go on. So he says, so he says, therefore, Rabbeinu Tam used to say, according to this Gemara, that we just mentioned, now since we put 4, right, which is already too much as it is, it's a chumrah, 2 because of tchelet, 2 because of lavan. We also we fold it over into 8 shmone. So therefore, if 2 of them got cut, you're still good, right? According to this, and you have enough to make a loop. Kasher. Oh, but you need a loop. That's the thing, right? You need a loop. But if 3 got cut off, right? Pasul. Then it's pasul. Why? Because maybe there's only 1 string left now. We're not really sure because we don't know, right, which string it was. It's the same as the other side, this side, whatever, right? We're not really sure what's going on. So we can't really identify each one, which one is which. So yeah, it's hard to do that. Unless you would make special, the colors, whatever. Can you imagine if somebody would do that? One is yellow, one is green, one is I can imagine what would happen if you had those in the store today.
Wow.
It'll be a big hit, probably. The people will buy it. Okay. So yeah, it'll be a big seller. Okay, so anyway, right? It's a good shlesh facility. Shema and Mesha behem ela chut echad. Shanen. The Gamma Mordechai says also the Mordechai. Habis Farazzo. He also brought Rabbeinu Tam. This is the language of the Mordechai. Right? Ve'omer Rabbeinu Tam. Says Rabbeinu Tam. Achshav she'anu nohagim arba'a chut peshutin. Since we do now 4 regular strings, white, in other words, white strings, Shem Shmona, which is really 8, right? When you fold it over. Kifulim, Keneged Tchelet, which corresponds to the Tchelet, Lavan, and to the white, both of them. So it says, even if arba chutim, if 4 got cut, V'yodeh Shem Shnei chutim. But he knows it's really 2, right? In other words, he knows which one is which.
Mm-hmm.
So if he knows that, right, that they were folded over, Shem Keneged Lavan, those are corresponding to the white, or corresponding to Tchelet. Ksherim, still kosher, if you have a loop. If he doesn't know that for sure, doesn't know for sure which string is which, it does not match them up, which is in our case, by the way, we don't know how to match these things up. Right? Pasul, and it's Pasul. Achid Barelo, until he figures out, right, he clarifies which one is which, right? Afilu b'shlosha chutim, he kind of suke, the spuke, the shema. So it says even with 3 strings, there's a doubt already. Shema nifsaku hanei chutim acharim. Maybe it's 3 strings that got cut, but only shar rak echad, only one is left over. Kil chato, which is full, shalem. Ve'ashar gardomin. The other one's just gardomin, right? The partial, as we said, right? Enough to make a loop. Upsulim. Therefore, it's pasul. V'chen asam maaser Rabbeinu Tam. So it's Rabbeinu Tam. This was his minhag, practically speaking. Not just in theory, right? Okay. Lifsol b'shlosha chutim v'gad. So he actually paskin like this, in a real case. He told the guy, it's possible. Go buy another one, right? Go back to what do you call it? Go back to Borough Park, get another one. Whatever it is, right? Okay. Go back to the shtetl, get another one. Okay. We got an Yosef. Right, so also Nimuk Yosef, Ketubah Svaraso, it's also brought down this opinion. This language over there. Some say that when it says that they should be left over enough for a loop, it's kosher, but it's only 2. The chud, only 2. Because you need 2 complete ones. We call tzad from both sides. Right, the whole kanaf from both in every corner. Kanaf shehek behem shneim etzbaot. So what does that mean? Oh, look what it says, right? You have to have 12 fingers. In other words, you gotta have 24 centimeters. That's why it's not good enough just that it should be, kedaniva, right? Enough to make a loop. You have to have 24 centimeters.
As long as 2 of them do have 24 centimeters.
Right. We don't pass like this, but this is Rabbeinu Tam. So it says, even though at the time of making it, he added to the length, he made it longer. Doesn't make any difference. Right now, it's a problem, What does it help you? Right? Okay. So it says, so it says, you see from all these Rishonim who brought the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam, the words of Rabbeinu Tam, according to Rabbeinu Tam, lo makshirin ela kishnishtaru shnei chutim. We only machshir if 2 strings, shlemim, complete strings got left over. That means 4 heads, right? Shekol echad me'arashim aroch 12 etzbot. You have to have a length of 24 centimeters, right? As machshir, then what's kosher? If the other 2 got cut, it's okay. As long as you have enough to make a loop. Right? Because why? Because the sons of Rabbi Chia only machshir in that case, where one is left over, right? Either the Tchelet side or the Lavan side, something has to be left over there, complete, shtemim, or ifcha, or the other opposite. But if it's 3 that got cut off, even though there's loop left over, psulim. According to this opinion. Kevan deikadom chadmina. Why is that? Because one type that got totally cut off. And also some of the others. So therefore, practically speaking, right, according to this opinion, if 3 got cut, we have to be concerned. What's concerned? Maybe each one is from one string. Therefore, you only have one incomplete string there. That's all you got. So therefore, from doubt, it's pasul, right? We go doubtfully pasul. But it says if only 2 got cut off, right? Then it's kosher. As long as it's got a loop. Even if you tell me that each one is from one string, there has to be at least 2 complete strings left over. Either way, right? So therefore, right, that's the way we go. Okay, we'll be like 2 minutes more. So it says this Rabbeinu cut their own Yesh Omrim. He didn't write Rabbeinu Tam's name. I don't know why. I don't know why he didn't write his name, but whatever. Right? Sometimes he doesn't write. By the way, the tour always the name of the Rishonim. Sometimes there's Yesh Omrim. That if right, Maran always writes, by the way, the names of the Rishonim. You know, his book is a little bit different. You know what I mean? The tour is more like like a short version, relatively speaking. You know, Maran is a long. Bet Yosef is a long version. So he's got enough room to write everything. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to. He doesn't have a problem with spacing. He's got enough space there to write everything. So that's like, yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, so right, whatever, right? איגדום, לבן, וכאי תחילת, או איגדום תחילת וכאי לבן. ומחשת בבני רבי חייה. Okay, very good. Okay, so now starting a different question. So I guess we'll stop here. We'll stop it here. And thank you everybody for coming in the Zoom. God bless you, ladies. You ladies are the best. What can I tell you? God bless you.
Thank you.
Hashem should build you, everyone, a Beit Ne'eman Beisrael, Hashem, a beautiful house, Jewish home. God bless you all.
Thank you.
Baruch Laila Tov.
Good night.